Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are so happy to have you listen in on quick wins to increase Workday adoption. My name is Lexi and I will be your moderator for the webinar today. Before we get started, I'd like to run through some house rules. Everyone is on mute and will remain muted for the duration of the webinar. The chat function is available, so if you have any questions you'd like our experts to answer during our Q&A session at the end, please be sure to send those over via chat. If we do not get to your question, we will follow up as soon as possible after the webinar to make sure we get all your questions answered. Additionally, this webinar is being recorded and will be available for playback tomorrow. And with that, I will hand it over to our speaker to take it away. Terry, it's all yours.
Thanks a lot, appreciate it. Welcome everybody, happy Thursday. Welcome to the quick wins to increase Workday adoption. Today, it will be Colleen and I doing the presentation, and we will be talking about all aspects of end user adoption, and it really falls into all areas of Workday. We particularly have expertise in benefits, HCM, comp, and recruiting, but when we go through the various aspects of user adoption, you're going to see it really falls into all areas. So what are we going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about why usability is important and the best practices. First impressions, workplace dashboards. We're going to be going down to values and how we can help really create understanding in Workday, business processes. And then we'll wrap up with, kind of what are your next steps and where do you want to go. Now, before I begin, I want to just put everybody into the right mental state. Everybody has implemented Workday to some degree. You went through an implementation. Hopefully it was a positive implementation. You focused on business processes. You focused on security and approvals and notifications and the look and feel and definitely data. And you tested, and you produced a great system, and it's working. But it's really working for the SMEs, whether that be in HR, payroll, finance, whatever the case may be. And the end users, perhaps, aren't really going into the system nearly as much as you were hoping or anticipating, okay? That's the reality of a lot of customers. They get through the project and they're so focused on making it right. Now they're looking back going, okay, how do we make this an even better experience for our users? And that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So why is it important? I thought this was a great statement. Workday is a system of adoption, highly dependent on end user adoption for it to produce the intended ROI. The companies chose Workday for a very specific reason. They thought it's going to improve business. It's going to really have a strong impact. There's going to be an ROI. You cannot really achieve full ROI. They're engaged. They provide feedback continuously, and they're using this system as intended. So what are we looking for? Increased productivity, reduced support requests. I know we all want that. Decreased error rate. There's ways to make that happen. What is user adoption? It's really how do your end users, and that could be employees, that could be third-party individuals, that could be contingent employees, whatever the case may be. How are they using the system? Are they embracing the system? Are they using it? Now, why do we want the user adoption, and what stops us from getting user adoption? Really, a lot of times it is information overload. We want to provide so much information out there because we can, but now they're like, wait a minute, what do it's too much, what do I do with it? Okay, which obviously can decrease user productivity. Process delays. If the process is unclear, they don't know exactly what to do, when to do it, the business processes get delayed. and OC&T for any future rollout of functionality or new modules. They don't embrace it. They're like, wait a minute, I'm not using the system as it is, and now you're giving me more things to use, right? More functionality, more things to learn. So we need to create an atmosphere, an environment where they're excited about when new functionality is coming along. So how do we do that? We'll be talking about it. Best practices. Less is much. This also gets into the managers. This is kind of the oddity of the manager's world. I've been manager on that side for many years, and I was the same way. I want to be able to access a lot of data and be able to dig in, but I don't want to manage by that. So I really need to understand, what do I need to see then and now? And then if I'm interested, yeah, I want access to be able to dig in, but help me manage by exception. Okay. Workday should be much more than a transactional tool. Workday is analytics. Workday is controls. Workday is communication. And we're going to be talking a lot about that later on in terms of announcements and things like that. How do you use Workday to communicate with your employees and your managers to really make it a vehicle where they're going in and going, okay, what do I need to know? What's on, making it really a part of their life. Okay, first impressions. We're going to be going into, pardon me, we're to these different areas, and these are somewhat tactical in nature, and they're meant to be. And individually, they can make a difference. Okay, and we're going to be going into specific. Also, this as in order to have the greatest impact, you need to really look at this as a mini project. You need to have a strategy. You need to understand what you're trying to solve. So the first thing you need to do is, why aren't employees or managers utilizing the system? Why aren't they going in? What are their pain points? What are they confused about? Is it a training issue? Is it just exposure? Is it a marketing issue of you're not marketing the system enough? Or is it, quite frankly, just confusing and they're not really sure what to do? So if you create an overarching plan, communication plan, marketing plan, what of these items are you actually going to utilize and make better? And what is the rollout to? Is it to a certain population? How do you measure that? The effectiveness of that? All of that needs to be really thought about. And we're going to come back to that thought at the very end, okay? And to kind of reiterate how, as a really a planned approach, it can be much more powerful than individual pieces. Okay, fair enough. Tenant setup. Tenant setup system. The Learn More button and the help link tend not to be utilized by a lot of clients. This is where you really need to have, what are your internal pieces of communication, of documentation, of tools to help your end users really learn and understand what's going on. You're going to have that all hopefully in one area, and you need to do these links so that when the user is actually in the system and they click it, it's going to go somewhere useful, okay? And you really have it presented in a way that it's they understand exactly what they need to open up and what it's going to be in there. So the naming convention is going to be very important. Making sure that your articles are concise and really to the point, so they're not having to read a book to figure out where they're going, things of that nature. But these are two areas that a lot of organizations just haven't touched yet. So it's really good in terms of setting it up so it's a much fuller experience. In their profile, you're going to see this documentation. This is something that's it's a link to Workday's community documentation. Not everybody has access to that. In fact, very few people in the organization are going to have access to that. So this link takes them to a website they have no access to. Not a very good experience. So my recommendation would be go into the Workday documentation link. All users that shouldn't have access. Keep, obviously, with your SMEs and anybody does have access to the community, just as a helpful link. But let's remove it from everybody else. So if they click it, they're not going to a website where there's nothing for them to do. All right, synonyms. This is another one. It's your organization has developed your acronyms, your terminology. It's a culture. It's a way that that everybody speaks to each other. Okay, their language of the business, as it were. Well, let's make that language available in search. So if you have a specific terminology that you're using for different areas, then let's create the synonym for it. So when they search on that, it's going to come up and it's going to know, hey, if I'm searching on fringe benefits, I know additional benefits will come up. In my organization, they're called fringe benefits. Whatever the case is, and this can be terminology for any part of the system. This is a good way to make searching easier and still retains the culture of your organization. Photos. I can't recommend it more. Now, obviously, this is a culture aspect with the organization if you want photos. It's also going to be certain organizations want professional only photos, maybe the security photo. Other organizations, this is a part of their culture that they want more dynamic and employee engagement. So they might have employees submitting photos. Of course, in the business process, you could have approval process and review process around that. So there's nothing inappropriate, but it is a way to engage with employees, because if there's 3 Sarah Whites and 2 of them are administrative assistants, the photo really helps with that, right? Also, if I'm going to be having meetings with somebody, it's helpful to see who are these people. What, do I recognize them? That sort of thing. So there really is an engagement aspect around photos. Highly recommended. Professional profile. This is probably one of the more underutilized and more powerful aspects in my mind for really gathering in one place all the information you need about an individual. Okay, not only for managers, not only for the SMEs, HR, payroll, whoever the case is, but also for the employee, because they get to see, hey, this is what the organization is viewing me as, okay? Also, if you've implemented the modules for it, they can start really engaging with their profile. What is my resume prior to joining the organization? What experience do I have that I want to present to the organization that on future projects, hey, I have this sort of skill set? What are the skills, certificates, languages, whatever the case may be? Let them start developing their own that's usable throughout the organization. So you really want to start looking at what are the aspects of the profile page that you can start implementing and really expanding upon, okay? When you're configuring your profile pages, these are all the different areas that you're going to use to configure. You can actually create your own reports and things to go into some of those sections. So as an example, if you wanted to create a new compensation view that showed all sorts of different pieces of compensation, benefits, fringe benefits, it could be company car, whatever the case may be, and you wanted to show a different picture of that, if you can create the report, you can present it in there. So start looking at what is the information you really want to be utilizing that profile for. My shortcuts. We're going to be talking a little bit about what can your users do to really make it their own workday. My shortcuts is big. If they're constantly going to the same areas, and this could be with SMEs or with employee or manager, if they're constantly going to the same area, and it's, even if it's in a worklet, sometimes this shortcut, they can just go right to it. Because even within worklets, sometimes you may have to drill down to get to something you specifically want. So reminding employees and managers that they can create these shortcuts on their own gives them a little bit, it makes them more empowered on how they want to utilize Workday. Changing preferences. This one is also, it tends to be, hey, we pushed it out, we trained employees, they forgot. It's not something they tend to utilize all the time. So reminding them about this, or if they've never been exposed to it, really explaining to them what it's all about. Their language, obviously, if currency, things of that nature, what they want. The big thing I would call out is the search preferences. Okay, you see here it's all the Workday. Well, that's great for me as an implementer and consultant. However, that's a horrible experience if you're an employee, and the vast time you're searching for is other people. Okay, or if they're really working in organizations, they don't want to be seeing everything come up. So explaining really what the search preferences does and kind of help control their search so it's a more positive experience. All right, Workday Assistant. This is brand new. It's in preview tenants only right now. Safe harbor applies. But this is on the your tenant setup. There's going to be a new tab, and this image here is what's going to be on the pages in Workday, and they can click that, or there's an assistant link up top. But here it's kind of really focused on certain areas for the assistant, and obviously this is going to be expanded more and more and more as more releases go through. But this is a very exciting area. I highly recommend going out to community to read about it. You can look at the screenshot, and it's more of what you don't want to provide as an assistant to people. But I highly recommend going to check out the videos, because I think this is going to be the future of Workday from an adoption standpoint of usability with employees and managers all throughout the system. So this is exciting stuff. All right, I'm going to pass it off over to Colleen, and she's going to be talking to us about worklets and dashboards. Colleen?
Awesome. Thanks, Terry. Hey, everyone. So, Terry, if we could go to the next slide, please. Great. So when it comes to increasing, how your users are going to use Workday and looking at worklets and dashboards, I really, really encourage you to start by seeing if you can configure the functionality Workday's already giving you, like delivered worklets or applications. Within the delivered worklet itself, you can adjust common actions, add custom reports, remove any unnecessary system delivered reports, and embed any related external links. So there is some configuration available there. Terry, could we go to the next slide? Thank you. Within each of those sections, you can change the order in which the items appear to help prioritize the most important content for your user using those order arrows. And additionally, you could use the plus or minus buttons to either add or remove any content that you don't feel is applicable for your users. Next slide. Thank you. So I mentioned that you can add external links often to a delivered worklet or application. So in order to do so, you would need to set up each link as a quick link. So this can be done through the task maintain quick links, and you can apply condition rules to drive which users see which links. This allows you to make sure your content is reaching the correct audience. You can also create links to documents that are housed within Workday for more streamlined access. So if you house plan documents or something like that, you could go ahead and put a link, even though it already lives in Workday. It would be much easier for the user to get it right off their worklet. Next slide, please. Thanks. So announcements, they're not just for onboarding. They can be used for all sorts of different things. So they can be configured on any dashboard, including your home dashboard. So some other ideas for announcements might be if the benefits department wants to let employees know it's time for open enrollment, for the payroll department, perhaps to notify workers that their W-2 forms are available in Workday to access, or really just any message that you want to get out to all your users and you want to sit right on that home page. Next slide, please. So within the announcement itself, there's a bunch of fields that you can configure to make it work really for you and the particular message that you're looking to get out there. So I'm going to start with section 1, and so that is the rules. So similar to quick links, you can put condition rules on these announcements so that only the audience that you want to receive the message is receiving it. For example, if you use my open enrollment example, maybe not all employees are eligible for benefits. You don't want to let them know that open enrollment is open because they don't care, right? So you can use a rule to narrow down your audience. The second section is the expiration date. The purpose of an announcement is to grasp your user's attention, right? So you probably aren't going to put an announcement out there that's just ongoing forever. And likely you don't want to have to remember at 12:59 on the day you want it to expire to go in and take it down. So you can set the expiration date so that the announcement automatically comes down, and there's no extra work on your system administrators. The third section is your message title. So make sure that you make this something that's going to grasp your user's attention, right? You don't want people to just be able to pass over it really easily. And to help that, in section 4, you can add a custom image. So on the previous slide, you might have seen my open enrollment message that I set up for you guys. That image is going to show as a thumbnail next to the announcement on the list of announcements on the homepage. But when you actually click on the announcement, it'll be bigger. Right, so try to use an image that matches your message title that'll really turn the user's eyes straight to it. The fifth section is the message. So this is the body, the text that you want the users to be reading, right? So, generally, I think, it's good practice to not make them too long, right? It's just supposed to be a quick announcement, not a long email. But definitely make sure that it has all the words in it that you're looking for. Section 6 is where you could add any videos to help engage your users. Most commonly, I see this used in onboarding, even though announcements are not just for onboarding. But the videos, a lot of times I think organizations have their CEO or other senior leadership include a welcome video in their onboarding for new hires. So something like that, or, if we use my benefits example, if you have a lot of benefit changes this year for open enrollment, maybe you want your senior leader of benefits to be explaining the changes for your employees. So that can be a really helpful tool. And then the last section all the way over to the right, but perhaps the most important, is that you can include a task, a custom report, or an external link right into the announcement. So in my open enrollment example that you can see on the screen, I linked a task straight to that employee's open enrollment event. So they don't have to navigate to their inbox. They don't have to read the instructions to figure out how to get there. They can just click on that announcement that says it's open and click right on the task. Terry, can I get the next slide? Yeah, thank you. Alerts. So alerts can be configured for anything that you are reporting on and can be scheduled for ongoing notification of report results. So the notification topic section is going to include the report output, such as workers' names in this instant, that meet a certain report criteria. You also have the ability to link it to a task. For example, here on the screen, I've configured an alert on an audit report so that the recipient knows which workers need a certain task completed for them because they meet certain requirements. Keep in mind that these alerts do go to your recipient's notifications next to your inbox within Workday. So depending on how your defaults are set for emails, they may also get an email as well. Next slide, please. Thanks. So maybe you can't quite get the delivered worklet or application to work for your needs, or maybe you just need a dashboard that Workday doesn't have a delivered option for. So this is where you can get really creative with what you want your users to see. So here I've set up a benefits and wellness dashboard. So each of those boxes, the COVID-19 information, find doctors, etc., those are all called bulletins. So each bulletin is configured separately, so you can split up information appropriately the way that you'd like your users to navigate through. And on the right-hand side, you'll see that there are Workday delivered actions included as well, just like they are in the delivered worklet or application. Towards the top, you can see a section header that says benefits and wellness. That's called a tab. And so keep in mind that you can actually have multiple tabs on the same dashboard, and they would appear just to the right of that header. Next slide, please. Thank you. So some things to keep in mind when you're configuring your dashboard or dashboards. So only include the bulletins that are applicable to your user's role, right? So maybe you have a couple different dashboards that you need to set up, one from a system user perspective or a system administrator perspective, excuse me, and then one from a system user perspective. You can utilize quick links similar to the delivered worklets. You can put the links right in there. As you saw on the previous slide, it can include a combination of delivered tasks and then those configured bulletin worklets. As I mentioned when I was talking about announcements, you can put those on any dashboard. So right on that benefits dashboard, say you wanted to have the open enrollment announcement on the benefits and wellness dashboard as well as on the home dashboard, you can absolutely do that. Like I also said, there can be multiple tabs within one dashboard. All the tabs would appear at the top. And then very, very important is to remember to remove any delivered worklets from your users' home pages if they're encompassed in the custom dashboard, right? You don't want the user to be confused which worklet or dashboard they should be clicking on to get to the task that they're looking for. If I can, yeah. So something that you might want to consider for reports that you're utilizing on some of these worklets or dashboards are analytic indicators. And so those are the red flags on the screen all the way over to the right-hand side on the report. And so this helps your users to select, This allows the recipients of the report to quickly identify any rows that might require attention. So that symbol itself on the screen you can see is a red flag. That actual symbol is configurable, as well as the rules for which the indicator would show up for. So these can be really helpful when it comes to either regulatory reporting or auditing, and you can have multiple indicators within one report. Next slide. So next I'm going to talk about values in the tenant. Thank you. So when it comes to naming of values, you really want to make sure that your naming conventions are clear. So this can help so that your users make the right choices, select the correct values, cut down on any confusion. In addition, if you have any catch-all categories or reasons like miscellaneous, users are going to navigate to that category if the other ones aren't clear and they don't feel like they have a better option. Consider which fields are truly required and indicate them as such. Make sure, that if there's specific data you need for a transaction, that's clearly marked as required so that the user knows they need to enter it. In some areas, you do have some control over the order in which information is presented or collected. And in those cases, make sure the flow of information makes sense. And then, as always, in order to maintain accuracy, make sure you're inactivating any reasons or values that no longer apply so that users do not select them. Next slide. Something you can do to help cut down on the values to search through is to hide any unused reports using the Hide Workday Delivered Report task. You can hide them if they just aren't useful for your user or if custom reports were perhaps created in their place. Once a report is hidden, it will not appear in the search results, menus, related actions, or the scheduler. Next slide. On the flip side of hiding stuff, you can also add custom reports to the sitemap or related actions menu through this Maintain Custom Reports on Menus task. Keep in mind that only custom reports that prompt for a business object can be added to a related actions menu. In addition to reports, you can also hide some unused fields by turning off security to that particular area. This can allow for a more streamlined process for your users. Some areas you might want to consider are contact information, personal data, compensation. Here you can see that I've hid the stock and commission sections to make navigating through this page a little bit easier. Next slide. Another way to streamline processes is to maintain organization types to control which kind of organizations are available for assignment. So if you have a list of particular cost centers in this example that you want to be assigned to the supervisory org, you can assign a list of only the allowed cost centers for any worker that belongs to that supervisory organization. In addition, you could set up a default organization. So if the majority of the employees who are housed in the supervisory org sit in that cost center, make it a default. Make it so that managers or other HR administrators don't have to select that cost center, and they only have to go through that extra keystroke if somebody doesn't meet that majority role. So the next slide, I'm going to pass it back to Terry to talk a little bit about business processes. I think you might still
All right, thank you very much. All right, simple business processes. Again, let's go back to your implementation. You went through, spent a lot of time in Architect, customer confirmation, of trying to get your business processes down right. Well, as time goes on, Workday makes adjustments, makes improvements, makes some changes. So as an example of that is some very complex business processes like the job change or the create requisition now has new functionality for simplified business processes where you can split them out, okay? So like on job rec as an example, they don't have to be seeing which assessment tests or questionnaires pop up or anything of that nature. It's very streamlined. What do they need to provide in order to open up a rec? And then recruiting can do the rest. Change jobs, similar. If I just want to change somebody's location, why do I need to see all that other information? Give me exactly what I need to see to do that transaction. So this is the perfect time for you to look at some of the processes where Workday has provided a simplified process and go, does this make sense for our organization and our users? Because quite frankly, the change job and the create requisition process are problematic for a lot of managers, whether they don't do it that often or it's just a very cumbersome process. So if we can take away that pain point of those two big processes that they use every now and then and make it simplified, then perhaps they'll be willing to do other transactions and not be more intimidated. So that's really what you're looking at. Relook at these processes. How do you simplify them? Okay. If you go back through your approvals, and I preach this to everybody, if I can notify somebody and not have them approve, it's a win. Approvals cause delay. So, take a fresh look at simplifying your processes. Help text. This is a big one. Either we didn't do enough of it Sometimes we did it too much, depending on the organization and the implementation. Help text, if it's strategically done, can be very useful, okay? But you really need to know how to do it right. You don't want to be providing information that they already see on the screen. You know, you want to be telling them what they need to be doing, what they need to be thinking about, okay? Keeping it very simple, using the bullets, you know, limit the verbiage around that. And what is the population that should be seeing it? Is it a general population? Is it a subset of a population? Conditional help text can help with that. Don't throw up help text that I don't need to see at the end of the day. So really understand who the audience is going to be. Things that you definitely do not want to do, writing an essay. The formatting, we need to understand, everybody, you know, it's limited formatting on help text anyway. Don't even go crazy on that, because with colors and things of that nature, again, you want to think about ADA, you want to think about your employees. Is seeing blue and red in the same sentence going to be an issue? Just, you want to make it something that's useful and it will capture their attention, but you don't want to make it where it's the center of attention on a page. Okay. So, how do you make the help text even more useful? Links. Put links there for them to access more information if they want it. You don't have to display everything in the help text. If they need more information, let them access more information through the link. Again, really focus on the audience. Who is it going to pertain to? The language is important. If language means, or the specifics of the language means much more for one audience and another audience, they use a different terminology, well, think about using conditional help text at that point, because you want the message to really make a difference. Again, do not repeat information that's already on the screen. You're wasting valuable real estate. And you got to realize it is real estate. When you're presenting a page to a user, there's only so much real estate on that page. So making sure that it's impactful is important, and not just have it there because you think it'll make you feel better having it. All right, validations. This one is something that you implement your processes, you put your warnings up there, or your critical stops up there, because you're trying to guide your audience. But they always, unless it's critical, of course, but the warnings they're ignoring. They're ignoring. Why? Too many? Do the warnings not tell you anything? So we really need to understand what the validation messages are, what you're actually instructing them to do. Do they actually have the ability, the security to do what you're asking them to do? So those things need to be thought about, retested, because a lot of times the testing does not focus on the actual experience. So run through these transactions again. Go, hey, does this warning make sense? Or is it a critical stop that doesn't need to be a critical stop? You know, we just did that in the beginning, but people got trained and we don't need that anymore. So reevaluate your validations, make sure that they're strategic, limit the amount of warnings to really make sure that they're useful, not just going, hey, you know, HR might slap your hand if the compensation is outside of the range. Well, if the majority of the population and their salary is outside of the range because you haven't manipulated the job catalog yet, well, that's not a good experience. So things of that nature we're going to be looking at. Embedded analytics. This is something that can be very helpful and it can be very distracting if it's not done right. Again, this is where you're going to want to put some strategy. You're going to want to invest time to talk to your audience and go, what is useful information? What is not? When is it useful to actually present it? When is it not? Because when you think they might need it, they may need it later on. or they might have needed it earlier, something of that nature in the process. But here's an example of one doing a request compensation change that shows, hey, this is, their talent analysis, their compensation analysis, again, using the analytic indicators, which are can be customized to what you need, as Colleen was talking about that earlier. So this is the management by exception philosophy of let me know what I need to know, on a quick view. But if I needed to click into this and really dig in, I should be able to. But this can be very important and very helpful in a transaction if done right. I've seen it where it's been done wrong and people just turn off their analytics and all that work goes to nothing. So again, you need to understand if you are using them today, are they helpful? Are they functional? And if you're not using them today, create a plan to use them because they can be very helpful. Embedded intelligence. Within the BP itself, if there are situations where you need to provide somebody with a large amount of data or just very specific data in order for them to do the next step in the process, you can create a to-do that presents them with a report that gets run. So this can be done within the process. They don't have to necessarily go outside the system to get information. You can really make it streamlined and have the data presented to them right then and there. Notifications, this is one of my favorite. When we implement, we tend to go, oh, we got to notify everybody. We got to tell them, hey, this transaction happened. Oh, this transaction happened. Oh, this information got updated. And then everybody's like, whoa, too many notifications. Even if they do a daily digest and change their notification methodology, it can still be overwhelming. So what can you do? First thing I do is shut off system notifications for everyday users. They don't need them. They're in the system already. You don't need to be notified that they have an inbox. Okay. Second, relook at your notifications that you've created. Are they to the right audience? Does everybody in there need to be it? Or is it just, we were just trying to make sure that nobody was left out? Again, this is going to be something that you need the feedback. You're going to go to your users. You're going to go to the recipients of the notifications going, do you ever look at this? Do you need it still? That sort of thing. Maybe they just, have a report that they run once a month instead. That could help out. Also, do they have the information that they need to have in the notification? Do I have the security to see everything about the transaction in the notification? A lot of people will build notifications and go, oh, here's a link to the transaction. They didn't have security to see it. So we need to be thinking about those things. So what do we do? What do we do? We need to let people, the right people, know the outcome of a transaction. Okay. A lot of times this replaces approvals. I'm a huge proponent of that. Okay. Simplify, simplify. Include a link to the transaction. Make sure they have the security to see the link. So you're not replicating the information that's in the transaction on the notification. You need to be brief. You can create dynamic notifications, so it's pulling in data. So as an example, if IT needs to be notified of a new hire, well, you can give them access to the transaction to some degree, but you could just, put in what is the name, title, department, manager, location, whatever the case is, and pull that information into the notification. Okay, so it's useful information coming to them. Again, you control how many notifications are going out to the recipients. What might be helpful is you list all the recipients and all the notifications and list out how many notifications they're receiving potentially in the system. Give you an idea. This individual is going to be slammed, wherever they might be. All right. We're going to talk about the wrap up. I told you in the beginning, think about, hey, we had this project going on. you implemented. Now you're looking at, okay, is the system really being utilized? Are we getting our ROI out of it? How do we do that? Well, we gave you tools, we gave you techniques, we gave you very specific tactical measures in order to improve usability and really more of engagement with employees and managers and things of that nature. And each of those can make an impact. But the greatest impact is going to come around, well, how do you package it? How do you make it so that you're marketing this to your users to make the greatest impact you can possibly have in a short amount of time? That comes out with planning. That comes out with a campaign around this. Okay. So in summary, we're talking about small changes like we've talked about can make a huge impact, but you have to have the strategy around the implementation in order so that your organization as a whole can move forward with really having employees and managers engaged in the system. Okay. The feedback is going to be critical. Like I've mentioned, you're gonna have to do sessions, garner that feedback, and then figure out what you can do with it. Now, with collaborative, obviously, we're an organization that would love to help you make your system the greatest experience for your end users as possible. We talk about all sorts of things that we can help with. A lot of it's going to be around, hey, it could be as simple as we need help understanding how to make announcements more effective. Okay, how do we really focus on the target audience and what type of media can we use? Absolutely, we can help you out with something very tactical of that nature, 100%. We can also help you out. We need to come up with what is our campaign, what is our strategy, how do we move forward? We have tools around that. Okay, it's very, very important that when you're trying to, I apologize, I was trying to get to my other document. When you get to really understanding how you're going to tackle this, what is relevant to the content from that CVS can really support you on to optimize efforts in your tenant for enhanced user experience, as well as OC&T and strategy services to help drive that end user adoption. That's really what we want to help you with. So what can be done? What are your next steps? Well, think about what your end goal is here. How much, where are you with your adoption in terms of your end user adoption? Get that gauge. Then reach out to your client partner. Discuss with them. What can be done? What are our next steps? What's the availability of support? From again the tactical all the way to strategic. So we're here to help you. We want obviously everybody to be successful, and we think the adoption of Workday to truly see that ROI is one of the more important things after your post-go live. I want to thank you very much for everybody who has stayed with us through the entire project. Again, we have OC&T and Lead On available for the tactical as well as the strategy. Now we'll open it up to questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Colleen and Terry. We appreciate everything that you presented to us. It looks like we have time for a couple of questions that came through the chat. The first question is, the create requisition simplifications are coming with R2, correct?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
Yes, the create requisition simplifications are coming with R2. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Great. And then another question we got is, what communication and change management do you suggest in ongoing mode? And then to specify, it says this is broader than announcements.
That's a great question. That gets into communication and marketing strategy, to be honest. There's announcements. I would not downplay announcements, to be honest. We use, as an organization, announcements all the time. I've seen organizations use announcements to handle in terms of storms and communicating with employees of around that, just general communications. But honestly, I would engage with OC&T and really understand what a overarching annual communication plan and calendaring of the communications that you want to do. Colleen, do you have anything else?
No, I was just going to echo your statement about engaging the OC&T team. I mean, that's really one of, you know, the biggest things that they help navigate. So I would definitely suggest leaning on them.
Well, awesome. It looks like that's all the time we have for questions right now. If we did not get to your question, we will be sure to follow up as soon as we can after this webinar. Thank you again, Terry and Colleen, for your time. And thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.